Wow.
It has a second hand been added to it.
Well, I heard
Dang.
he was talking about a second hand, but who was the one that added the second hand?
Well, he found that the drive had the space for a second hand. And there was a hole for a second hand. But there hadn't been a second hand in there for
Come over
ever.
here.
Yeah, forever, yeah. So, how are we looking?
Good, I'm just trying to keep, battery.
Easy
on.
rider.
Yeah, I know.
This one stopped after 25 minutes, so we can stop.
Oh,
Yeah, I gotta get
yeah.
recording again.
BLT, hold the bacon, hold the lettuce, hold the.
Okay.
Can you do that? Yeah.
Oh, no, okay.
All right, we'll be back if we got everything.
Okay.
Hey, Lynn, are we gonna continue
All right.
now?
Thank you.
We're ready now, yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
I remember, this is from back when Donnie lived down in Bielska at the old farm. Look at that crowd. That's far. And that's Downey. No, that's Elma. That's me.
that's me over there in the end, isn't it? Or am I sitting on Mother's lap?
I think so, yeah. That's Mother with you.
Yeah.
And so that's probably Carl. And might be Hans. There's Downey.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's, that's, hence, he died in a motorcycle accident,
Yeah.
I know.
Right.
But he was down in Bornholm. And you and I visited Bornholm, or we were there for a brief period of time from our trip.
To Norway?
We didn't see him down there because he'd
No.
already passed away, right?
Well, somewhere in that neck of the woods, but I mean, the only reason he was down in Bornholm was because he was serving his army time.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know that was going to be.
I mean, he was,
Yeah, he was doing this time.
yeah, and so they was coming back home from one of those places on his motorcycle that he
Yeah.
went. So he was very young.
Yeah. Who's Famo? There we are. And that's Hans, right? W.
Yeah, and yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked Hans back then.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Carl was more your size.
Yeah. Well, Carl, he's only about a year older than I am or something.
Yeah, he's the younger of the two. And after that, Downey could only get girls.
Huh. How weird. I don't remember very much about that we had a lot of toys. But apparently, we must have.
We had some, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Fa used to bring home stuff on his trips. But
Yeah,
of
well,
course
you got all the good stuff.
yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, but because then he couldn't make it back.
Yeah.
Again, during the war.
See, now that's my kind of toy right there. And that
Well, I mean, as kids, we found ways to survive.
Yeah. That to me is one of the things that, in looking back, I mean, we had a ball together.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had other kids and we
Yeah.
had cousins and
But it was mostly cousins. I mean, they were.
it was cousin galore.
Yeah. yeah, most of school. That,
And it's funny to see.
like that. I remember that.
Mhm.
Shit, we went to hauling that stuff up that hill and run down. And because it was wondering we didn't kill ourselves.
But that's the favorite picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our
We
summer
could-
bath.
We couldn't do that now, could we?
We hell need a big bat.
Oh dear. Yes, this is a good one here. Ida and Henry. To specify, he only really had Henry there as the foreman, and then they would kind of supplement.
No,
other guys.
Henry was the foreman of the, he had three.
Oh, there were three of them?
There were three of them.
Okay. I remember Henry.
But he was, what, because he was the one who stayed the longest.
Yeah. That was your main gift from far, I remember.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I got it when you wore it out. There.
There was some oldies there. I just needed to see.
Huh.
Oh, okay. The usual.
That's Ida again. Yeah, the usual, you and I.
Okay, all right.
That's a pretty good photo here of Ingrid. Me, Ellen. I don't know who she is. That's you, that's Jens, that's Herluf and Sven. Are we ready to go?
I'm rolling. Yeah,
All right.
anytime.
We met you back in Copenhagen for the big wedding. And,
Well, you came before that.
well, I know that. But I
And I remember bedding you down in my studio apartment on the floor.
on the floor. I was going to point that out. The accommodations were basic, but
Basic, yes.
they were good. And I remember, well, we can go into a big story about our flight over, because those were the days when the airplane, the jet
landed.
couldn't stop, go all the way. It had to
You
stop
landed
breathing.
in Greenland, okay.
Anyway, when we finally got closer to the wedding, and you had promised us this trip back down into Europe,
Oh, yeah.
had you kind of laid that out in your own head as to where we were going to go, or how long we would be gone, or whatnot? We were gone, what, 3 weeks, or
Yeah.
something like that.
It was just sort of made up
As
as
we
we went.
Okay. I recall fondly that you handled me quite well in that you would be driving, and we would find a place for lunch, and then we would have a nice sandwich, usually French bread of some kind, and a big beer. And you'd put me in the back seat, and I'd fall asleep, and off we would go again somewhere. But that was, my first trip down into Europe, and same with Marty, and we have lots of fond memories.
Well, it was mine too.
Well, I was going to say, well, what do you remember from that trip? Any highlights or anything that kind of, besides driving this new fancy car? And I remember one time we were down in Italy somewhere, and it was something wrong with the car.
That was in back in France, or on the way back.
Yeah.
Well, going down through Germany was just of some interest, but then we got into Tyrol.
Mhm.
Salzburg was up, and then into Austria and Tyrol. You remember we stopped at a small inn in Tyrol, and it had this enormous room. It was cold outside because it was, it was up high,
Yeah.
and they had a huge tiled
Oh,
heater.
yeah. Kakalo.
Kakalon, yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It was very funny, strange place. Then we drove from there through the Brenner Pass down into South Tyrol, which is in Italy. Yeah, Bolzano and all of that.
Yeah, I remember a fun restaurant we had. I think it was the first time that we had cutlets, but anyway.
Oh, yeah, all right.
It was a marvelous dinner, and
Veal piccata.
there you go. And it was served the Italian way.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
But then we ended up down in Rome.
Yeah.
And in Rome, I remember ended up in some kind of pension.
No, it was a former monastery that was now a hotel hostel type of thing. Yeah.
And that was a huge room.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like ginormous.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And we went up on the west coast of Italy. Went up to the Italian Riviera.
Yeah, and then into the Riviera and then up.
Yeah.
And we ended up having motor trouble in a little town. There was a Peugeot dealer.
Okay.
And we needed service.
Yeah.
Well, we had a British car
Yes.
with Danish plates. I spoke American, and but okay, I did have a little bit of French, and the Peugeot guy, the owner there, he wasn't very fond of Americans.
Okay.
So I had to pretend that I was not.
It was that guy sleeping in the back. He was the American.
And so he agreed to try to fix it.
Uh-huh.
He didn't have exactly the right part, but anyway, he agreed to. So, but it took a couple of days,
Uh-huh.
and so we stayed in town and had dinner. I remember that night I tried brains for the first time. It was very fatty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I should have had some. Maybe it would have helped me get it.
I remember you and Marty, you went at it once in a while.
Oh,
But that was particularly
Paris.
bad in Paris, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember I went for a walk. I just couldn't take it anymore.
No. Well, and I was so close to winning, but I never did. What if we argued? But anyway, we're getting back. I want to hear now. We finally got back to Copenhagen, and then we had the big wedding.
Well, we had the wedding. Yeah, we had the big wedding after we came back.
Yeah.
I had asked Inger to accompany us,
Yeah.
and she said no.
And what was the reason for that?
I don't really know what her reason was, except that
She had to get ready for the.
she had to get ready to go for a long trip.
Yeah. That she do.
And
Yeah.
she wanted to finish up being a nurse over there.
Yeah.
So
I can understand why she didn't go, but that would have probably made for. Well, we had a great trip.
it was a good trip.
Yeah.
It was a good trip. Neither Inger nor I wanted a big wedding.
Well,
We had just, figured that we could probably just go to City Hall and sign on the dotted line.
yeah. Well,
But
there you go. No.
Inger's stepmother decided exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you had no say in it whatsoever.
None.
I recall that it was a very very formal. I mean, it was the first time I had to rent a tuxedo
Well,
and to be the best man.
mm-hmm.
I don't recall very much of the event itself. Must have been a short ceremony, or was it?
It was the usual church wedding,
Yeah.
and they had decided to use the chapel in Frederiksborg Castle as the church, as the venue. And on a later trip, I took Anna with me there, so she could see it. Because there's public access. And it's
After the wedding, the reception was at somebody's house. Whose house was that?
Well, it was a party house that rented out.
Oh, okay.
And after the wedding, Inger and I went off in a horse-drawn carriage to a photographer to have the formal pictures taken.
Yeah.
And everybody else, I guess, skedaddled somewhere, I don't know where. And then we gathered for the dinner at that
house.
place. Right.
I recall being very nervous because I knew I had to say something. And even though that my Danish was okay, it still was kind of weird to stand up and speak in front of all these people who were obviously so much older than I was.
Yeah.
But I managed to get through it. And then for some reason, I also decided I was going to call Mother and Dad and let them know that what had taken place and that all had gone well and all that sort of stuff. So I made this phone call, but I don't remember whoever paid for it. Maybe I called collect or something. But it was late at night and it turned out to be in the afternoon over in Port Madera. So Mother was very happy to, in those days you really have to watch how much you talk. So it was about a 15-second conversation.
Well, I remember it was pouring rain when Inger and I left.
Left that house?
Yeah, left the party.
Okay.
And we were driving north to, we had a room reserved at an inn
Yeah, okay.
up in North Sjælland. We got there in the rain. It was around 1 o'clock or a little after in the morning. And there was no way we could wake the people up.
The innkeeper.
We even threw rocks and gravel up at the windows. And so, and Inger's shoes were ruined and because we were standing out in the rain. So eventually we gave up. So I had to drive through the rain somewhere up there. And lo and behold, we saw a guy walking his dog. So we stopped and asked, is there an inn or hotel someplace where we can go? Well, he was in charge of one of them. And so just come along with me. And so we did. And so we finally got into a room, but at that time, we were so tired we couldn't do anything.
It was just lay down and that was it.
Yeah. So
How soon after that did we leave on the Stavanger shore? Was there a period of a couple of weeks?
yeah, about 2 weeks.
Okay. And Marty and I must have gone back up to something. I don't know.
I don't know what you did.
Yeah.
But I remember we had to vacate Inger's studio apartment. So Festa Elma stayed there while we were on our quote-unquote honeymoon night. So we couldn't go back
You
to
couldn't
it.
go back. But yeah, that is problematic. Yeah. So you had what a couple of a week or so?
Probably 2 weeks or so.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think because we were married on the 19th and the ship left after the 1st, in June, and because I was due back at Stanford on July 1.
Yeah, there was a little time frame there that we had to.
Yeah, and then when the ship was delayed, but so we made it across country.
That we did.
By hook or by crook.
Yeah. You moved to Palo Alto. You had
We found a little cottage down in Palo Alto.
You rented that.
Yeah.
And were you there for what, a year?
Yeah, a year.
And then what were you doing? Were you in the residency program there?
Yeah, at Stanford.
Okay. And then you went from, after that year, then you moved up to Kaiser in San Francisco.
Yeah, well, I found out that the business of taking my patients home with me at night, that was not a good idea for me. I could not imagine living the rest of my life like that.
Yeah, like a family physician.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
I just, it was too much. Too soon. So,
What, you discovered that at Stanford?
in the very first 3 months.
Okay.
Oh, God, yeah.
I thought you discovered that when you were up at Kaiser in San Francisco.
No.
Okay.
That was when I then decided to look for another residency instead of in medicine.
Uh-huh.
But I finished the year at Stanford. I signed up for it and I finished it.
Okay.
I didn't like it much, but I did the eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing about a variety of
Don't
things.
use that. That's a terrible way to say it. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Well, do I want to do into radiology now? Do I want to do dermatology now? Do I want to do ENT now?
Yeah.
What about pathology?
Quiet life of a pathologist.
And, within a month of being at Kaiser, I knew exactly that was what I wanted to do.
Oh, okay. Did you do any work in the pathology department at Kaiser in San Francisco?
Well, that was where I was doing my residency training in pathology.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, what were you doing seeing patients? Weren't you seeing patients there for a while?
Oh, well, I had to earn some extra money. So that was in the drop-in clinic at night. I was working extra.
Yeah, I knew you were in there somewhere. Okay. Those were the days when the multiphasic was the in thing for us peons to have to go take. Remember those?
Yeah.
How long did you finished another year at Kaiser or?
I had 2 years at Kaiser, and then I switched to the UCSF program and spent time out at the San Francisco General Hospital
Okay.
for a year.
All right.
And
not-
then I could have stayed on and become the fourth year resident, but it would have had to be up at the big San Francisco UC hospital here in town.
Mhm.
And the department up there was very weak at the time, so I said, hell no.
Yeah.
So I moved back to Kaiser for the fourth year.
Okay. Yeah. You got along pretty well with the head of that
Oh, yeah.
department. What was his name? Do you recall that? But it didn't matter. But
Basses.
yeah, Beth. He had some connection with living in Terra Linda or something.
Yeah, he lived up there.
Anyway, so how did you get down to San Diego?
Well, when I was in my last year of residency, I checked out where I could get a job.
Yeah.
And I was offered a job at Kaiser in Portland. And so Ian and I traveled up to Portland in the fall. It was gorgeous up there, fall trees and colors and stuff.
Yeah.
And they feted us and partied us and all of that. Ian loved it. But at the end, they had not established a department of pathology yet, and I was supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Well, Christ, I was just finishing residency training.
Yeah.
And when they sent me a proposal that I proposed how to set up the department and stuff, I figured they're out of their gourds and they're asking me more than I can do. And so I had looked elsewhere too, and I had asked around for places down in San Diego, where I could get on and in the water and stuff.
Mhm.
And I remember I had written a letter to one of the older pathologists down there. And he didn't have a position, but there was perhaps this guy, and then of course there's Dr. Cowsworth. So
Actually, Seth remember.
well, it was a very funny way of putting it, which meant to me that okay, he might be worth trying.
Yeah.
And so I did, and he saw me one time. I was doing some externship at the blood bank up here, and he came up. He was inspecting the blood bank.
Oh.
So we sat down and talked.
And then began the
Then it began the many years since.
little ones. I know Pete was the first one to come along.
Yeah.
He came along in San Francisco, right?
Yeah. As did Torben 2 years later.
Right. Okay.
And of course, I had to pay for both of them, even though I was in Kaiser.
Oh dear.
Well, because Peter came out a week before I started at Kaiser.
Bad timing.
Bad timing. But that was because Inga had been stripping wallpaper off of that goddamn house we had rented.
Yeah.
I was up from San Francisco, from
Palo Alto.
Palo Alto the weekend, next to the last weekend. And Inga's, at the end of Saturday, he said, my tummy hurts. So I gave her a double whiskey.
Oh, great. That's why you're. That's why you're in the pathology.
And that sort of calmed things down a little bit. And we went to bed. But in the morning, Sunday morning, bright and early, my water broke. Okay, so off to the Kaiser. And, you know, it was early in the morning, and I was, back then, men did not go, daddies could not go into the, not even daddy doctors could go.
No,
into.
okay.
So I was told to go in the cafeteria, so I bought the newspaper. And I hadn't finished the newspaper when the nurse came up and said, hey.
Yeah.
So I had to call somebody. And Famo and Fafa and Chris were down in the Panama Canal. So I called you guys,
Yeah.
and you were hung over from a party night before.
Oh, no way. Let's not go into that.
You weren't exactly
Bright and
right. You're right. I had to call somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
2 years later, we went over to your place from our place in Novato, and Marty was great with child, and her water had broken, but it didn't go that smoothly. It was like a whole day operation, and I think I smoked a whole carton of cigarettes waiting out in the hall. So those were the days.
Yeah.
Okay, can we stop a little bit now?
Sure.
Because I heard the sandwiches.
And I just wanted to say, this is all Torben's doing. If your sandwich is not right,
Yes, my fault. They ran out of sliced wheat, so everybody ordered sliced wheat got sour.
Oh, there you go.
He made an executive.
We did. Great one. That's good.